Can the Republicans win the Senate? That's what I'd like to talk about today. The short answer is yes, we can. And the field at the moment looks pretty good for us. There are 7 states that are red states. That is, they went for both McCain and for Romney. And they've got open seats or Democratic incumbents in them. Start with the 3 open seats. You have Montana, South Dakota, and West Virginia. West Virginia is a lock for Capito, who's going to win. Shelley Moore Capito, Congresswoman. South Dakota is a lock for Rounds, the former governor, a Republican. And Montana looks pretty good for the former governor who's running. The only problem is that Baucus resigned to get appointed ambassador, and the Democratic governor may appoint his lieutenant governor, who's a Democrat, which might make it a contested race. But still, the Republican looks to have a solid lead in Montana. Then there are 4 red states with endangered incumbents in them. In only one of them is it clear who the Republican opponent will be. That's Arkansas, where Mark Pryor is facing Congressman Tom Cotton, and Rasmussen has Cotton ahead by 45-40. And previously Blanche Lincoln, the other Democrat senator, lost in Arkansas. So I think it's a pretty good bet that Cotton's going to win, Republican. Then you have 3 states, Landrieu in Louisiana, Hagan in North Carolina, and Begich in Alaska, Paul Begich. And in each of those states, there are Republican primaries. Louisiana, it's a general election / primary with a runoff, but that's the same thing. And it's not clear who the Republican candidate's going to be. But the polling shows that each of those incumbents is in very serious trouble. Hagan and Begich more than Landrieu, but still serious trouble. So those are 7 seats which could very well go Republican. 6 of them look awfully good at this point, and we need a pickup of 6. There are danger signals, though. In Kentucky, Mitch McConnell is now behind his Democratic challenger, even though he's way ahead of his Republican primary challenger. McConnell needs to get out of there, needs to resign, and let the other Republican, Bevin, be the nominee, because they would have a much better chance of winning against the Democratic candidate. But in any case, he probably isn't going anywhere, and McConnell will have a lot of money, and it's kind of a tie race at this point. So I think McConnell might be okay. Then you have Georgia, where it's a Republican seat, vacant, and many, many candidates running, with a strong Democrat, Michelle Nunn, this daughter of Senator Nunn. But I think that it's become a very Republican state, and I think we're likely to win in Georgia. Then you have a tantalizing prospect of a whole lot of other states, which are basically blue states, but in which Republicans are emerging very, very strong. One of them is Michigan, where Terry Lynn Land, the Secretary of State, is mounting a very strong and very good challenge to Gary Peters, the Democratic congressman, to fill Carl Levin's vacant seat. And then Minnesota, Al Franken, is facing a tough fight against Ortman, a Republican state senator. And that could be a very difficult race for Franken. Minnesota's always been right on the cusp of red and blue. In New Hampshire, Jeanine Sheehan, the Democratic senator, is facing a challenge in New Hampshire from a bunch of candidates. But the possibility that Scott Brown, the senator from Massachusetts, former senator, will run in New Hampshire. And since New Hampshire always gets Boston TV, he's almost the home state senator. In Oregon, Merkley, the Democratic senator, is facing a very interesting challenge from Mona Wahey, who is a doctor who's running against him and has an interesting shot at winning. And in Colorado, Udall, Mark Udall, his brother's from New Mexico. But Mark Udall is basically tied with any of the 2 or 3 Republican challengers who are vying in the primary to oppose him. So you have those 5 or 6 seats that are 4 or 5 seats that are really up in the air. So it's hard to tell right now, and the situation hasn't settled. But it looks pretty good for control, and it looks okay for going a little bit beyond control in terms of the number of seats. Thanks for watching.